Neurochatter is a play about the psyche, persona, shifts in self, and what happens when the thoughts in your mind become full embodied people. And the story basically shows you 3 alterations in self fighting for control over one body. And I performed it at Fringe, Brighton Fringe, Edinburgh Fringe. It won 3 awards and it was shortlisted for Best New Writing. My first ever script that I've ever done. I used the process of psychodrama. Psychodrama is a trauma therapeutic, it's quite in depth, but it's a trauma therapy where you get to meet parts of self. So if those parts of selves or inner beliefs and thoughts could be a person, what would they say? How would they talk? How would they walk? How would they interact with each other? The process is quite crazy. It's where I literally embody those parts and allow them to chitter chatter and talk in between, and I record it, gather that into a script, into a narrative. And it's what the surrealists would call free association, where you just allow the unconscious to pour out. That's why the recording is so important to that gathering and editing. It's what Carl Jung, or Jungian psychologist, would call active imagination, where you tune into the imaginative part of the brain and allow that to pour out through the container of a drama. So you open the lid and you close it. I had a 3-month break from that process after doing that process very heavily for 9 months. Another lens is that actors would consider it to be method acting, where you completely take on the role of those characters. But in the scenario and world of Neurochatter, I'm taking on multiple characters at once in quick succession. And when it comes to the play, I slow it down. I really distinguish between them. The process is wonderful. I never know what's going to come out. It's an absolute joy and gift, to be honest with you, because it's free association. You just let it pour out from the perspective of those parts, and their main objectives and incentives kind of pour out on top of it. So I learn a lot about the characters and aspects of self, I guess, through the process. And it is always that not knowing what's going to be said next that is quite exhilarating and makes the story exciting. Even though Neurochatter uses a lot of these psychological principles, it is a critique on the pathologization of trauma, of victims' trauma, and I have to be careful with my words here, what I consider to be a psychiatric implantation of a pathology. And it is based on my experience of completely splitting apart 2 years ago and having to put myself back together, which you don't see in the show. You don't see that integration occur. It does heavily criticise clinical psychologists who are telling women who are experiencing normal fluctuations in nervous system and a dissociation from their reality to survive. Reframing that as split personality is dangerous, and that is the main objective.
It's like living in a different world. It still is sometimes, Elliot, I know it is. But the clinic, the therapy last year, the diagnosis, I don't want to speak about that, but they knew about this. They knew about us, they encouraged it. And now, you're saying, I'm not the cause of that, aren't you, eh? There you are. Oh, you're pushing me away. I'm sorry. I have to, alright? You're trying to wake us up. I have to. I'm so sorry, Elliot. Aye. Well, that's hard. No, that is fucking hard, because I feel wide awake. You don't. I don't. Not as much as I used to. That's because you're not fucking believing in it as much.
The bedrock of it is all this shit. Intense study of trauma, of psychological framework. This is the book. It's The Red Book by Carl Jung, and he is one of the founding psychiatrists and psychologists who literally does what I do, where he talks in free association, in active imagination, with one foot anchored in reality and fantasy dualistically, and sees what emerges. And he had all sorts of archetypes, personas, versions of self emerge through him.
So it's like it naturally pours out of me. It's like a neurotour. What the fuck is a neurotour? A neurotour? Where you explore the mind, venture within and see what comes out. That's what Carl Jung did. I know, but his self-experiments, they drove him up the fucking wall, didn't they? They did. Well, yes, you've got to be careful with that, definitely. Are you sure you've not already gone fucking mad? Most likely. You have. There she is, it's a shadow. Founding father of psychology. Had split personalities too, you know. So I'm not that crazy. Keep telling yourself that, you fucking prick.
So I am sadly stepping back from theatrical performance for the next few years, and I really hope to be back to performing a new and updated script of Neurochatter for 2027, realistically 2028. So I do aim to get back there. In the meantime, however, I'm trying to put it either into a podcast and audio where you can hear the characters' changes and that conversations between them, but more realistically a book. I've been intending to write Neurochatter into a novel for some time, and I feel like a book would really be able to illustrate those differences in character and how this person experiences those different aspects of self as distinct people who live in her and share a body with her, and that's what the story is about. But yeah, I'm excited for it, and that's the news.